Today was a fairly easy workout day. Um, Squats approached 235 for 5 sets of five. Nothing too difficult. Really focused, like I have been the past few weeks, of just making sure that I had good depth, good activation in the posterior chain, and then full lockout at the top of the rep to where I wasn't cheating it. Everything went pretty smoothly. Really no complaints there. The only thing that's kind of odd is that my lower back erectors are still a bit sore from trying to max out my deadlift on Sunday, which does happen, and I think is a consequence of the difficulties that I have with my hips and my deadlift technique whenever I'm trying to max out. So that was kind of interesting. It didn't really cause any issues when I was squatting, but I could definitely feel it after every set, which kind of made me question how I was approaching my reps, whether I was getting it a little kind of weak with including incorporating some butt wink with that, whether my arches were collapsing and I was engaging my back. But looking at things right now, they're fairly clean reps. I really don't have any complaints about how they were going, but it's always kind of an interesting tidbit with that. But quads feel fine. I was rocking out to Daft Punk today, so had a little bit of pep in my step. But no, things moved really really well. Um, I'm really happy with how these are going with squats. I really haven't hit a wall yet, and I think I should be able to hit 270 without any issue at the end of this cycle. Maybe, maybe not, but we'll see kind of where that ends up. If I do, with how things are going, I may slow squats down a little bit, just simply because I've got way too much strength in my quads compared to my hamstrings, and I might just kind of taper that back a little bit just to still push them, but maybe not as much. Kind of slow things down with the growth. Or alternatively, I've also been considering switching over to doing front squats for a month or two, just to kind of work on that upright position. My squats are fairly upright. They could be more so, and doing front squats would definitely help with that. Granted, my depth is perfect in my opinion. I'm well below my hips. The crease of my hips is well below my knee, and I'm really happy with that. But just kind of change things up a little bit. Maybe working some front squats, or maybe I just kind of go all out and don't slow down. Push to 290 at the end of next cycle for the first time ever, and that might be a hell of an endeavor. So I don't know. I'm kind of thinking it over. This is the going into the second week of the fourth month right now, and things are moving fairly easy. Squatting is something that really doesn't take a whole lot out of me. Doing reps at lower weights, but at higher weights it does kind of have an effect. So I don't know, just kind of thinking on it, thinking out loud right now of what I want to do. But these 5 sets, no complaints at all. Very happy with how they went. Going into overhead press at 105. Again, same thing. Not really too many complaints. The only thing is that I could tell I was getting a little tired towards the end. So I am very certain that I will be able to do 110 for 5 sets of 5 without having to do any push pressing. It might be next workout, it might not. But I think there's a fairly strong chance I'll be able to accomplish that throughout this workout cycle. And here I'm fairly happy with my form. One thing that I do notice that periodically tends to happen is that as I'm doing my sets, my right shoulder will tend to lag behind my left just a little bit. I think that's just a result of general weakness after the muscle tear, which is kind of interesting too because following the tear immediately, my right shoulder was significantly stronger than my left, just because of all the additional work that was focused on that shoulder. And I really didn't work out my left as much, just kind of did light maintenance work with it as opposed to my right, which I was really kind of rehabbing and working and getting back into good shape. So interesting that it's kind of starting to lag behind again. I started consciously thinking as I was going through, making sure push that right shoulder through, push it through with each rep, and just make sure that it was a good, solid repetition at that weight. I didn't want to cheat or anything like that. I didn't want to make sure that I wanted to make sure I wasn't push pressing, getting everything through, nice and cleanly by the end. So got two more sets of this, I believe. Yes, two more sets. And again, nothing really too bad, nothing to complain about. Just kind of looking forward to see where things are going to end up next week with doing the 110s, and that's just going to be. We'll have to see how that goes. After this, I did some hex bar deadlifts at 300, and I was a little bit worried about the lower back erectors for this, but at the same time, normally that's never really an issue for me on these hex bar deadlifts, just because my form is forced to be better in these than it is in a conventional deadlift, and so I have a little bit easier time pulling the weight with a hex bar. One thing that you will see once I get into doing these sets with the hex bar is that I was kind of thinking over different ways to help out the lower end of the deadlift, especially with using the hex bar, which I do the high handle specifically to kind of again tackle that second portion of the lift where you're going from after breaking the weight to bringing it up to your mid thigh and locking it out. I used my shoulders and pulled the weight off the ground with breaking the tension, held it for about a second, and then completed the rep. Just to kind of feel for a little bit that initial break. So you can see that little hiccup right there as I'm pulling. So hiccup, pull. And I'm using it to focus pulling my shoulders position, getting everything nice and tight, and pulling that weight off the ground to start the rep, and then pulling it. And that's something that is something that I really need to do more of when I'm doing one rep maxes, being able to break the weight before and take all the slack out of the bar before I do the rep. Because trying to pull the slack and do the rep at the same time at the very beginning takes up a lot of energy. And being able to prep, get everything tight for 100%, and then go is a lot more beneficial to you than just going all at once. So again, going with these sets, I was super happy with how they went. There were a couple times where, again, I really focused on how my body feels going through these, and if I felt something was weird, I would stop and fully reset my positioning. But really, I focusing on making sure to get that initial set of tension. You can see my entire back straighten out and almost freeze in place. The barbell just kind of pops up for a second and then continues rising up on that rep. There's a lot of mental focus that I'm allocating to myself to make sure that I get that properly. And I really like my hex bar deadlift form. I think that's out of all my deadlifts variations that I do, this is my best one. And that might be partly because this kind of mirrors a squat, and my squats are very strong relative to kind of all of my other lifts, and it's it's pretty transitive to it. So overall, super happy with how things went. I'm looking forward to kind of working on Saturday. Saturday's gonna be a little bit different. I am going up to my alma mater for a jazz festival that my fraternity hosts every year, and I'll be working out with some friends of mine from my fraternity at the campus rec center there. So kind of see how things go and what equipment they have there. I never actually did any weightlifting when I was in college, so I don't know what is in the rec. So kind of see what I might do. I'm thinking I might do, if they don't have anything to do block pulls with, I might do some sumo deadlifts. I've been thinking over that and whether that might have more utility for me when deadlifting, given just the strength that I have in my legs and how that kind of outclasses everything else in terms of my deadlift. So I'm going to play around with that if there's no blocks at the rec on Saturday. Outside of that, though, you know, pretty productive sessions today, and looking forward to the next one.